Hey everybody, it's me again, Adam Chapnick with the Security Token Academy. It is Security Token Industry Launch Week, and I am joined by one of our returning champions, the one and the only Mr. Jor Law, the founder and CEO of Verify Investor. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you and I have spoken countless times on this show about all of the exciting things that are happening in this industry. What I love talking to you about is sort of the nitty-gritty. But before we get to that, why don't you tell people who aren't familiar with Verify Investor, what is Verify Investor?
So, very simple, Verify Investor is a service that does accredited investor verification, and that's generally used in many of these STOs that are being sold in the US.
Okay, great. And so who are the clients that you serve at Verify Investor?
What
kind of clients?
At the end of the day, the onus of doing the verification is on the issuer or the company that's raising capital. Mm-hmm. Now, because they have to do the verification, but the verification is of investors, we also service investors. At the end of the day, if the investors aren't happy, then the issuer is not happy, for example, right? And sometimes the relationship is not always issuer and investor directly. Sometimes it's issuer, intermediary, investor, issuer, advisor, investor. So, really any one of those three parties could be our client.
Got it. And how do you do what you do?
So it's a software-based solution, where essentially we match people that have verification needs with people that are willing to perform the verifications. They're generally third-party licensed attorneys that understand the laws, and they will take the information that's been submitted, conduct a review, and return a result. So we're a technology layer where we don't provide the verifications ourselves. We provide infrastructure and technology that enables people to safely conduct verifications quickly and efficiently.
Got it. Now, while you're doing that, you're also the mild-mannered super advisor to many of the sort of biggest companies in the space. We won't tick them off, but you get to see sort of the inner workings of a lot of the different components that are emerging in the STO ecosystem. So in that sort of privileged seat that you have, what do you see as some of the more interesting developments that have been happening in the last, say, couple months?
The technology is getting to a point where it's pretty much workable for like limited use cases with limited interoperability, where if you've developed something and you know your code works and you've done it, that's a lot of people have gotten most of the way there, right? Maybe they've made mistakes, but they've gotten pretty close. There's still a little bit of lack in terms of interoperability with, if I do this and I have to collaborate with that person, can I collaborate with that person? So both of us, like if you've got your technology, I've got my technology, we're both happy with each of our technology. We haven't exactly figured out a way to seamlessly talk to each other just yet.
Right.
So that's happening. It's exciting that that's starting to happen.
Yeah.
You're starting to see some deals being forced through that is starting to force that interoperability, which I think is important because it's the deals that are giving people real use cases instead of abstract use cases.
Right. If somebody understands what does this whole world do for me, that's when people are going to start using it, because they'll suffer through the pain of getting there if they know the benefit at the end.
Right, and also you're able to start putting systems at work. Otherwise, when you're building for the unknown, you're just trying to build for everything if you're doing it properly, but that means it's slower and you're not ready to go to market yet. But if you just have a deal that you send through and you know you could service that one deal, then you could start focusing on like, well, at least for this part, I know I can make it work, and I can even make it work with your part because it's small enough that both of us can just collaborate to see if that one thing works.
Yeah.
And I think from there you might be able to see the beginning of interoperability, and then it'll expand from there.
Yeah, is it going to be this is a genuinely ignorant question. Is there going to be an adoption of a certain standard, like when it was the Blu-ray versus the HD DVD? Are we going to see some sort of standard that everybody will have to develop on so that interoperability works?
So that's happening now, right? Now you're getting a lot of people that are coming out with the realization that they need some sort of standard, much like ERC20 standardized things so that everyone knew how to deal with a token and interact with the token. Well, people are starting to realize, well, okay, maybe I need some sort of standardization so people know how to deal with a security token. And the evolution of that was that you had some people start creating one particular type of standard or protocol and brand it under their own thing, under their own name or brand. And then, of course, you had multiple folks say, well, I've got this protocol, and I've got that protocol, and I've got that protocol.
Right.
So people have realized, like, okay, well, now you have a proliferation of protocol, let's try to just standardize it. So then, one party said, okay, we're going to have a standard, and all protocols should adhere to this. Well, of course, now you've got multiple people proposing multiple standards.
My standard should
right.
be the first.
But the big difference is before, the protocols were controlled by a single party, whereas the standards are being proposed to the community. So even if they're proposed by one party, they're contributed to by the community, and hopefully now you get a convergence upon a single standard that now everyone can take home and modify.
Yeah, some kind of agreement. That's
Yep.
great. So in the past, we talked about some of the inherent technical challenges that you witnessed or understood that had to do with the verification process, with the KYC process. Have you tackled those? Are you guys are you seeing similar problems, or are they getting greater or lesser, or what's going on with that?
I think in general, there hasn't been that much movement made in solving identity gaps or verification gaps. The laws haven't changed much. The tech hasn't changed much. What will be required would be some sort of shift in law or some shift in what people believe is reasonable or acceptable, right? So, if all the banks come together and say, like, we agree that this is one method of AML KYC that we think works for ourselves, and we'll share this with everyone else, and they all agree, that would already be a step forward, and things like that are starting to happen. So when things like that happen, then you can really start doing things focused on standardization instead of being separate. Now, accredited investor verification is a national standard, so we're lucky that we benefit from having that standard. And then you're starting to see AML, KYC, identity providers trying to attain something similar.
That's great. Okay, well, progress is progress, even if it's incremental.
Right.
We like that. So what about some of the developments that we've seen around SEC action and things in the last month or so? Well, have you noticed anything going on there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they've been active in investigating and subpoenaing people to learn more about the industry. Certainly at Verify Investor, we've seen issuers get investigation letters. They've reached out to us to help. We've seen issuers get subpoenas. We've gotten subpoenas, not kind of for ourselves, but to respond to information requests on other issuers, people that have used us. So there's that process, and as far as we're concerned, part of us is excited because when the SEC starts doing stuff like this, it's good for business. People start realizing, oh, okay, this is why we use Verify Investor. We're happy we use Verify Investor. On the other hand, it's difficult as well because sometimes the subpoenas are a little bit overreaching. We really want to strike a balance between being very cooperative with the SEC and regulators to help make this place safer for everybody. Yet on the other hand, not just giving everything because we're concerned about investor privacy and things like that.
Got it. So what's your prognosis for the STO space? How are we looking? Are we on pace to be killing it by the end of 2019? Are there a lot of inherent obstacles that some of the lay people don't understand?
Certainly, I think we'll do well. Will we ramp up amazingly quickly? I don't quite think so. I think there's some time. Like, if you're taking the wait and see approach before you get in, you're not necessarily missing the boat. If you come in now, you're still an early adopter, you're still one of the first movers, you haven't, the boat has not left the harbor.
Yay, that's great. What are one or two of those inherent obstacles that people may not be aware of?
I think interoperability, multi-jurisdictional issues, and liquidity. And costs, right?
So and they go together, right?
Right, all of that stuff, right? If I have a deal that is going to be a small, private deal, maybe a generally solicited deal, and I'm going to not tokenize it and sell it only in the U.S., only to accredited investors, well, that's not that difficult to do right now. So if you go tokenize it, there's cost, time involved with doing that, there's trust of the technology. Then if you're out there still trying to sell it, the promise of the extra liquidity, is that enough to really get additional investors? And once you get those investors, is there really that liquidity? All of those are in early stages. So you might get a little bit of lift, but you're not really getting substantially different types of lift on there.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I think early adopters will be charging forward, leading the way, but the benefit that they're getting initially maybe not necessarily be so obvious.
Interesting.
They will be there, but they will definitely be the first movers to realize them a little bit later than they expected to, probably.
Yeah, I got it. All right, well, we always love hearing the sort of the view from the inside from Jor Law. So thanks for being with us again, and we'll have you back soon, and we'll have you back often.
All right,
so
thank
good
you very
talking
much.
to you.